All right, so second question for today was what to do if you have an aggressive goalie whose technique is horrible. All right. So we had a video posted into the group this week of a goalie, a young goalie, and that's what's kind of spurred me for this conversation today. The goalie's obviously keen, obviously excited, adopting good technique, probably the college goalies that he loves, and that's cool. But just some, bad movements in front of the ball and stepping to the ball and things like that. And so is that a bad thing? And my answer to that is no. All right. So this again goes back to the conversation of coaching the athleticism out of your goalie. All right. Man, my live video stopped over here. What the hell's going on? Sorry, everybody. Um, ba- back in, going back in here. Sorry, guys. Am I just crapped out of my other one? Weekly Q&A. Going live again. All right. Sorry. For those of you in the group, I seem to have good connectivity here. My page just dropped. So if you have a goalie who is naturally aggressive, and what usually comes with that is they're also keen to get better and they're also hardworking. Okay. And I don't want to stop that at all. I don't want to confuse a kid. I want them to be, I'd never want to coach out a natural aggressiveness, because when you have that, great things can happen. Okay. If you don't have it, then you're kind of, there's no contact for a kid to want to get better, right? So naturally aggressive, I'm not worried about technique. All right, I want that kid to be in there and having fun and stopping balls and just going crazy, because from there I know that we'll be able to then, as that goalie tries stuff and it doesn't work, then they're going to want to learn how to get better because they want to get better, right? So um, I think of a lot of kids who come who and play. They come from football, right? Like let's say they're a lineman and they get thrown in the cage and they're naturally big, right? I think of we've got some goalies. We got some goalies out here that are, I think Darius Miller, who's now off in college. He's from Colorado, a big dude, And I think of George Muskos, who's at Dickinson. The kid's like 6'5", right? Like, that kid's naturally going to absorb some shots. And so, listen, we can work on the technique later. So if you have a goalie who's naturally aggressive, and let me just preface this a little bit, because you can have a kid who's like positive aggressive, and then you have a kid who's like aggressive, but he's kind of out of control. That's a kid you want to control a little bit, right? If you've got a goalie who's stepping up the top of the crease and he's whipping balls upfield and he's slashing the attackman who's in his face just because he's aggressive, that's not cool, right? But again, a goalie who's naturally aggressive usually wants to be better, right? And so I see this in other sports, which is kind of fascinating. You get kids who are naturally aggressive, and we're just trying to harness them in. It's like you're trying to get a saddle on a Bronco, that sort of thing, right? And you'll get there, but you just got to be patient with it. So if your coach, like let's say you're the parent on the sideline and your coach is trying to like reel in your goalie and your goalie's kind of getting frustrated with it, let your goalie know what I've just said, which is, okay, listen, that coach, they're really focused on technique right now. And that's okay. Just, we can work on that, but just don't let that spark go away. Okay. And this is where I think it's important to engage your goalie, engage your athlete, and have like good conversations with them about becoming a better athlete. I don't like the conversations that tell parents not to talk to your kid, right? Or don't be coaching. Now, because I guess because of my experience with lacrosse goalies, I'm more open to this conversation because we all know how difficult it can be, right? You're listening to someone like me who knows what they're doing, and then you may go to your coach, and this is going to lead us into our next question, which is kind of neat. But you may go to your coach, and that coach is like old school, or they don't know anything about goalies. So I want you to have that conversation. So because I want your goalie to be aggressive and feel protected and safe and excited and want to play, because then from there, they're going to get better way quicker than if we don't have that aggression. And I don't want to see that coached out of them. Okay. Joseph Michael, hello, sir. Keith McCluggage, good to see you. People are just kind of checking in, which is good. Sorry, guys, all got bumped a second ago. So, third question for today. And if you guys have a question you want me to cover, go ahead and drop it in the comments, leave a like and all those good things. That'd be great. Um, and so this final question is like, what do you do? What do you do with if you have an old school lacrosse goalie coach? And this is interesting. Um, I don't know when this conversation is going to go away, but let me share this so everybody kind of understands. One of the problems we have in lacrosse is in our hotbeds like Long Island and Maryland and upstate New York, we have old school coaches, right? Where they probably coached a kid who went on and played in college and did real well and played pro and so they're coaching the same way they coached 20 years ago. Great. That's all cool. But I believe that the lacrosse goalie of the future needs to be trained a little bit differently. Now, that's old school coaches. You also have old school coaches who are just wrong, like they were taught incorrectly, and they're stubborn. And I try desperately not to be a stubborn coach. I try to be educated about why I believe what I believe, and if that changes, I will change. But I know that's not always the case, right? Because some coaches just don't want to. They they know what they know and they don't want to know anymore. And then there's other coaches that just don't care, right? Like they just don't care. And I get that a lot from the parents who work with me who join Lacrosse Goalie University. They've been working with coaches, and just the level of it's just they're just not there. The information is just not there. So how do you deal in this situation? Well, first and foremost, I think you need to be respectful, right? You always have to be respectful of the coach who's in front of you, okay? And what I encourage all my parents to do, and later today at 2:30 Eastern in my other group, Raising High Performing Athletes, we're actually going to talk about this today, how to deal with negative coaches. So if you want to come join us over there, that's at 2:30 Eastern. But I believe that when your kid, especially the goalie, right? Especially the goalie, if you're going to play with a new club, if you're going to play with a new team, if you're going to be around a new coach, there's nothing wrong, in my opinion, about reaching out to that coach and asking, hey, what do you do with your goalies? And, oh, by the way, coach, if you tell me you don't know what the hell to do with your goalies, that's okay, because we work with Coach Edwards at lacrossegoalietips.com, like whatever. The having that some sort of discussion is vital. Now, what I wish happened is that our coaches and our clubs provide information to the parents beforehand, right? Instead of having this moat. Like, I feel like a lot of clubs are like this castle, like at the top of this mountain with a moat with alligators in it. Like, don't you dare talk to us. Like, you're lucky you're even on our team. And, this is our, don't even ask what it is we're doing. Because basically, but all they're saying in the back of their heads is like, we don't really know what we're doing. This is what we do, and this is all we can think of doing, and this is why we do it. And so don't ask us why we do it, because we don't know how to tell you why we do it, because we don't know, right? So don't be like that. And George, I appreciate it. That's exactly why they switched clubs. And Jen's in Florida. Jen, I can't remember. You're down south. But the point is this, is that I believe that as parents, as adults to other adults, or if your club is coached by a bunch of college kids who really don't know anything, as the adult, it is your job to reach out to them and go, why is my investment in your club? Like, what is going to come back to me from this? What do you teach? What do you do? How do you go about this? Like, what do you teach your goalies? What's your clear like? What's your ride like? What do you teach for fast break? What do you teach for positioning? Because, oh, by the way, we work with Coach Edwards, and we know like this, and we've been working. Like, that's the key. Like, like we're coming to you with this philosophy, right? What are you going to do for us, right? Or what about what we know conflicts with how you want to teach? Because I think all challenges that come in coaching, really every coach they want to win, right? They're coaching a team. They got 17, 20 kids to worry about. They're trying to get to a common outcome. If you come and you're just like, you start with nothing, and then 3 weeks in, you're like, oh, this is crap. Well, now you're just bitching. Now you're sitting on the sideline, bummed out and upset and like and griping. And if you're griping to other parents, that's not cool, right? Like it's just, you made the decision to join that team or that club. You got to know before you even get there what's going on, right? So that you don't run into this. Or if you know it's coming, you can agree to disagree and say, like, listen, okay, coach, we've been taught this way on how to play. You're teaching that. How do we get to common ground here? Why do you believe the way you believe? And why does Coach Edwards believe the way he believes? And which one, do you guys know each other? Like, that sort of stuff, right? And I've covered this in great detail, so you guys can go through the archives here, go to my blog, things like that, see my philosophy, and just understand why I think the way I think. But you need to get to your coach and get on the front end and go, oh, coach, I see you're still teaching step into the ball. Why do you believe that works, right? And then you go to your goalie and you find a common ground. And you either decide to not join that team and join another team, or you decide to do it and tough it out for whatever reasons, okay? This conversation to me, guys, comes down to, and there's an interesting thread that started in our group today by a mom, and what this comes down to is when you're working with coaches, this comes down to very adult communication skills. I think everybody would agree is that what we're dealing with here is very adult communication skills, and it can be somewhat confrontational, right? It can be like, oh, wait, I don't agree with the way you're teaching this. Well, as if it's your high school coach and it's the only coach you've got, that's one discussion. If it's a club team and you're making a conscious choice on what to do, then you have a choice to either go or not go. That is also a decision. But I want you to understand that I don't think young athletes can have these adult conversations yet, right? I joke that it's like trying to have your kid go negotiate buying a new car for you. Right? You wouldn't do that. No, you're going to have an adult doing it. And this is where I think what happens is as parents and as coaches, I guess, we're siloing everybody. The coaches are like, coaches coach, parents parent, kids play. I think that's wrong, because what needs to happen is there needs to be a common discussion as to why it is we're doing what we're doing. And this is why. And if you have a different belief, then you can either be part of our program or you go somewhere else. And that's fine. But as goalies, sometimes like teams need you, right? They're like, oh my God, we got to have this kid, right? And that puts more power on you. But as the adult in the room, if the other coach is also an adult, go talk to them, right? Go talk to them. Get on the phone. Better yet, meet them in person. I'd rather go to a Starbucks and meet kind of some in a third place where we can talk and talk effectively than have you fester. So Keith writes, the varsity coach wouldn't let my son check on the crease even though the defense is really weak. He's playing for a different school with a very physical team now and loving it. Sure, that's cool. To me, it's all about, like, when I coach kids, my deal is that I want this kid to be better later. Like I want him to be good now as best as we can make him, but I also want to put him on path, or her on a path, to be good down the road, because this kid hasn't grown up like wanting to play JV lacrosse or high school varsity lacrosse. They want to get to college eventually, right? And so my job as a coach is to make that athlete better. I'm going to cover this a lot today in my other podcast, but some coaches, and this is fine, like that program, and I know we've got guys on here who run programs. Here's the deal, is that your program is going to run long after that kid is gone. That's a good program, right? So in the short term, it's one thing to be able to meet an athlete and give them what they need, right? But by the way, fun is not the answer there, but that's another point. The idea, though, is that the program is going to be here long after that athlete is gone. And if the experience was good, that athlete will come back and help, right? And bring back some of that knowledge. And this is the problem, and I got off track here, but with our old school coaches that come out of hotbeds who are stuck in their ways, that's one group. But for a lot of you guys that are in new areas, North Carolina, middle of the United States where lacrosse is slowly growing, you have no continuity of knowledge, right? It's one thing to have a couple college kids coming to. I remember when like Minnesota opened up, and a couple guys were up there. It's like, yeah, this is great. It's like bringing, you know, shovels and picks to the gold mine. The gold miners up there. It's like, oh, this is great. But nobody knows any better, and the parents don't have any knowledge of the game, and so that makes it like, yeah, it's tense. What you need is that those kids that grow up in the program to come back and now be able to teach. And that's one of the problems we have with lacrosse goaltending is that, one, we need a major shift in thinking, and that's what I've been pioneering now for a really long time, is that we need a new paradigm of thinking for the lacrosse goalie position specifically. Well, that takes an even another level of learning. So for a lot of you listening to me who may not have played when you were younger, and you're trying to figure this stuff out, the athletes you're bringing up, the goalies you're bringing up, they're going to come back and now teach the next generation, right? And that's when you have like continuity of learning, right? So in the short term, this is why I also I wrote about this in my book, In an Athlete's Guide to Winning in Sports and Life. I said, listen, the idea of the changing the game project and things, I like the name, it's cool and all, but here's the thing, you can't change the game. Just like you're not going to go into this program and all of a sudden change it. You're not going to go up, if you get in front of a coach and you say, hey, coach, we disagree with what you're saying, and they go, oh my God, you're right. If that happens to you, write me, please. Send me an email. But odds are you're going to run into a little bit of conflict. The thing is, I want your goalie, I want your athlete to get through this next experience, whether it's high school, spring ball, it's travel team, club, whatever. I want them to get through that experience so that they can reach their goal. So what's their goal? Their goal is not to play for that travel team. Their goal is to play in college, right? So how do we make your goalie better so that happens, right? And that's a lot of the work that I do with my goalies each and every month, right? So be respectful of whatever coach you're in front of, but have a good conversation with them and say, okay, listen, what do you teach? How do you teach it? What do you want to have happen? What do you need? We run this clear. Oh my God, my goalie's never done that. All my goalie's ever done is thrown the ball downfield, right? Like he's just Hail Mary the ball downfield. We used to call it a Gilman. That was the term. Wait, now I got to coach my kid up on how to do that. Otherwise, this is going to be a really bad experience, right? So that's an adult conversation. Your kids aren't going to have that. I appreciate when people say like, oh, high school kids should be able to advocate for themselves. That's great if your kid's like the valedictorian, he's run for president. But if your kid's like the soft, sweet, quiet type who happens to be in the cage, they don't have that skill to just all of a sudden confront a coach or respectfully confront a coach. I'll share with you one story here, and then I'll call it quits for today. I transferred high schools. I switched. So I went to Thayer Academy in Braintree, Massachusetts, up to my grade 11 year, up to my junior year. And in my junior year, I also was playing for a club lacrosse team in Connecticut called the Connecticut Valley Lacrosse Club. So I'm a high school kid with a bunch of like college age and graduate guys like in this club, and we're playing teams like Toyota and Brine, and I'm still in high school. My mom's like driving me out to these games. And there, my mom's sitting on the sideline, meets this woman who's the wife of a guy I'm playing with on defense, who happens to be a coach at Lawrence Academy. Long story short, I end up at Lawrence Academy, where I repeat my grade 11 year because I wanted to be a high school American. Now that first year, big expectations. Like Jeff is the coach, he's excited. Now he's got like a really good goalie on his team. He's really excited for how the season's going to go. The team wasn't very strong, but he's excited. And man, I got big goals. I want to be an All-American. And so I remember in those first couple games, I'm making passes that he's not used to. Like I'm rifling the ball down to attackman. I'm hitting middies, breaking out. He's never seen that before. Not that he hasn't seen it, but he never had a goalie on his team that could do it. And if I missed a pass, if I sailed one over a kid's head and it went out of bounds, he would rip me. And one of the things that happened was I had a conversation with him where I was like, you got to not yell at me, right? There's nobody on this team who wants this more than I do, right? You think that my critic inside isn't louder than your critic. Now, I didn't use those words exactly, but that's basically the gist of it. And I had to go to him and I said, listen, this is how I need you to coach me for this to work. Now, I know for a lot of you guys, your kid's not going to do that. Your goalie's not going to do that. But you might be able to enter that conversation with your athlete and go, hey, how can we make this work? Like, what do you need to make this better? And going to that old school coach and saying, hey, coach, listen, I've been learning a lot about this technique about stepping laterally instead of stepping, on a 45-degree angle or whatever. I really like it, and it seems to be working for me, but I know you don't like it. Why? And then you have now you have a discussion. Now you both can be learning, because a lot of coaches, they have very low self-esteem and they're very worried about like how they're coaching and what they're doing, and they want to win. And like I said, they got 20 other kids to worry about. So make sure you're meeting your coach kind of halfway respectfully. And I think you can turn any coach into an advocate for your goalie, as long as your goalie's not being a complete ass, right? That's the exception. If your goalie's an ass, then none of this matters. Jen writes, oh my goodness. Okay. Even in Maryland, sometimes you don't know what you don't have. Do your research, go online and check out. Nobody text me in a second. I'm trying to, Jim's there. Okay, hold on. Sorry, guys, I'm mumbling. Go online and check out their websites. Go watch other teams at tournaments. Watch their coaches' interactions. Watch the parents and watch the goalies. That will tell you if they appreciate goalies. Reach out to club directors, and they are usually very nice to sell their program, especially if they need a goalie. Right? Part of what I'm doing here, guys, is making you an informed consumer. One of the things I wrote about, like on my page about Lacrosse Goalie University, if you go to lacrossegoalietips.com and you just search for there's coaching at the top thing. I added some threads in there, some common questions that I get. And one of the things that I want you to be is an informed consumer. Like I always tell people that the money you spend with me for coaching will make everything else you spend money on more valuable, right? And what I mean by that is that exactly what Jen just wrote here is that I'm going to help you decide, like, okay, is this program you're going to go to worth it? Just this past week, I had a dad reach out to me. One of my dads reach out to me and ask about a local clinic that was going on, and if it was worth it for their goalie, not a goalie, but their goalie. And I was able to give that information because we've been working together. So in all of this, I know for some of you, we've got a big spectrum here. I've got parents on here whose goalies are already in college. I've got parents on here who are like single moms and have never played lacrosse, don't know what the hell's going on. So in that spectrum, here's the common thread. We're trying to make your goalie get to the next level, right? And so whatever that is, we're trying to get your goalie to the next level. Along the way, you're going to run into coaches, right, who run programs. And they're either going to help you get to the next level or they're not. They're going to go, holy shit, we need a goalie. We'll take anybody, right? Or they're going to go like, no, like we want you, or you're with us and we're making you better. Like everybody's got their own kind of iron in the fire, right? And you got to look out for that. So, listen, leave me a comment or send me a note, send me a message. Jen, George, I really appreciate your comments. Because even in a hotbed like Maryland, these problems still exist, right? It's not limited to if you're in North Carolina or Ohio or Indiana or any of those places. Michigan, I got flown out to Michigan to work with a goalie a number of years ago, a high school goalie, and I remember asking like, "What's lacrosse like out here?" And it's interesting because it's the same. It's the same story. All right. So listen, everybody, I appreciate you watching and listening. If you're on iTunes or on YouTube or on Spotify, as always, listen. A couple things. I wanna, if you haven't already, on YouTube, go check out athletespecific.com. Just search for it, and you'll see some of my videos. Please go over there and subscribe. Over there, I talk about a little bit more higher level sport kind of things for athletes, and because I believe. Listen, I'm going to leave you with this. I believe that the lessons our kids learn from sports are the most impactful lessons that they learn through their entire high school experience, if they're aware of what they're learning. Because what tends to happen is that our kids get into a sport and they only focus on the thing, right? For our goalies, they're only happiest when they're taking shots, right? But along the way, if they're aware of setting goals and they're aware of what they want to what they want to achieve and how they're getting to it, so just so they're not just stuck focusing on the technical side of things. And I'm gonna scroll back here. Rick Reinecker wrote, with spring season starting, I remember you did a session about setting goals. Is that correct? You know, Rick, I do a lot of content, and I'm not sure exactly where, but the important thing is that maybe Rick, I'll do another session on this one specifically, but I want you to sit down with your goalie and go like, what are we trying to get out of this season? What are we trying to get out of this season? What do we need to improve physically, technically, tactically? If you don't have my book, okay, shameless plug. If you don't have my book, get it. All right, An Athlete's Guide to Winning in Sports and Life. It's on Amazon. All right, get it. I've written it in a way where you can just pick and choose through like the table of contents topics your kid needs to work on, right? So if you don't have it, please go get a copy. It's the best $25 you'll spend this year, and you can have really good conversations with your kid. I don't care if your goalie doesn't read, you can read it, and you can have a better conversation with your kid because going into any, whether it's your high school team, whether it's your club team, your travel team, your summer team, whatever you want to call it, having a goal as to what you're trying to get out of it is going to be really, really important. Okay. So come join me over on YouTube at athletespecific.com and lots of content there. And I appreciate everybody watching. John Lewis, last thing, mourning the loss of Coach Charlie Jackson in Oregon. John, thank you for writing that. For those of you who might not know, but Charlie Jackson was the head coach at University of Oregon, right? John, do I have that correct? Kind of tragic stuff going on there. So reach out to the guys in Oregon if you know anybody out there. Send your love. But that's a loss for the lacrosse community. So John, thanks for posting that. All right, everybody, listen. Have a great week. Lots of content coming out. It's lacrosse season. Listen, if I can help you, come join Lacrosse Goalie University. Go to lacrossegoalietips.com/call if you want to book a call. But listen, let's just get you started. All right. Talk to you soon, guys. Cheers. Bye.